Greyscale have won the case against the SEC, and they are going to get their ETF application re-examined by the SEC. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this ends up playing out, as it's absolutely huge for crypto, in my opinion. And it's really, really big, obviously, for BTC, because the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, this case is all about the conversion of their trust being converted into a spot ETF. And so the main thing here is it's really giving a strong signal to the rest of the market, and particularly to the BlackRock application. And we're actually going to get the first deadlines for some of those coming through on the next couple of days, starting on the 1st of September, which is a day away from now. And then we get the BlackRock one on the 2nd of September. So if you're in Australia, that'll be coming through overnight on the 3rd for us. So yeah, really interesting to see this play out. It was sort of expected because they had actually approved the futures ETF, and basically the SEC lost the case because they didn't provide enough evidence to show why they had approved the futures ETF and why the spot ETF would be significantly different to the futures ETF. So let's jump in and have a look at what has been going on, right? So Grayscale wins a court battle against the SEC. Regulator must review the Bitcoin ETF application. So basically, Federal Appeals Court on Tuesday, the Securities Exchange Commission must review the Grayscale application to convert its Bitcoin trust into an exchange-traded fund, undermining the agency's long-standing opposition of the concept of a listed spot market investments for the leading digital asset, while allowing them for futures, right? It really makes no sense, because they're claiming that a futures ETF protects customers, and so that's fine, but a spot ETF doesn't protect customers. But the thing is, the major difference between the spot ETF and the futures ETF is, on a spot ETF, there's no carryover fees, right? So most of the futures ETFs at the moment are down versus native asset value about 25%, because every single quarter that they roll over. So you have you have first contract, and then you have to roll it over to the next contract that's coming in. So every 3 months there's a new contract, because futures are just a contract and you're not actually trading the underlying asset. So you have to always be rolling it over. So the ETF is always on the forward contract, right? And every time that happens, you lose maybe 1 or 2 or 3% between the price and the value of the contract, because they don't trade exactly to the native asset value of the underlying, right? And so that can be a big problem. That's why they have a thing called decay. And over time, what happens is the value of Bitcoin and the value of the futures ETF, and this is the same for all futures contracts as well, futures ETFs, is the native asset value will continue to climb over time, or whatever is the way it's trading, and it will continue to go up. And the futures contract, the ETF, will slowly start to bleed out, and they'll be start to create a bit of a gap between the two. So obviously that's a problem if you want to be holding one of these things long term, which is why no one really cares about a futures ETF, and everybody wants a spot ETF, because they want to be holding the underlying asset. When they buy the BlackRock ETF, they're getting insurance with that, they're getting security with that, they're getting custody with that. And that's why they're going to pay a little fee for it. And BlackRock's going to make probably $1 billion plus every year just from holding people's Bitcoin for them, right? So they really want this to go through. So this is going to be a really good sign for BlackRock as well. And it's a great sign for Grayscale, which is good for the overall industry as well, because if they had to liquidate the Grayscale Bitcoin Futures Trust, so it's not a future trust, it's just a trust. Basically, that could be, because at the moment that Grayscale's in a lot of trouble. They're going through bankruptcy for Genesis Earn, and if they had to liquidate some of their assets in the only profit center, which is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and sell some of the Bitcoin or something like that, when there's still a big gap, that could be bad for the rest of the market. So this is a really good sign, because it sort of takes away a little bit of that pressure, in my opinion. If they do convert to an ETF, will help them make a lot of money. And, great signs, because the Grayscale, the GBTC chart, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust chart, actually pumped about what was it, about 20% overnight. Give me 1 second. I'll get the chart across for you guys. This is it here. So yeah, it had a really nice pump, a little bit more bullish than actual underlying BTC there. So it was about still up about 16%, but yeah, pushed about 20% in total. So really interesting to see that play out. Excuse me. Really interesting to see that play out overnight. It's great to see them get a really nice big pump as well. Now, somebody jumped onto my YouTube channel because I made a video the other day about, why Bitcoin can't pump at the moment. And then Bitcoin came out and it's had, this nice little run overnight. And it's managed to actually pump about 5%, right? This is off really, really bullish news. So for me, it's not really that exciting, to be honest. This pump, I mean, I'm a bull at heart and, I'm always, excited to get upside. I did actually buy some BTC in here the other day. And the reasons for that was because we were the most oversold on the RSI that we've ever been on the daily and in the 4 hours. So it just made a lot of sense to be getting into some sort of a position here on this bull div here. That 4-hour bull div is pretty similar to, the main setup that I like to take. So I was expecting this to either come down and sweep this one more time and then go up here anyway. But yeah, this was a really nice entry candle for me, that nice pin bar there. I would have preferred this if it actually came down and swept this low, trapped a few more shorts at the bottom of the range, but it didn't. But, 4 hours, super oversold, really nice bullish divergence in there. And also the daily was extremely oversold as well. So couldn't help myself but get into a position there. Also, this daily order block through here as well was a really nice one to be getting involved in, right? So, the combination of these two order blocks was, I just think, too good of an opportunity to be buying back in, right? So I did actually get into a position there. And to be honest, when I saw this pumping last night, I thought this was going to run a little bit harder. And someone was basically, they said on my YouTube channel, something like, oh, we've all been wrong with making calls before, but I've never been that wrong. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I made a video and was talking about why Bitcoin's struggling to pump right now. And then we pumped 5% off really, really bullish news. I'm not really sure if, what I was saying was wrong. And, if this is all that we get out of this pump, then yeah, I think, my theory on why Bitcoin isn't running right now is it's actually proving that, because realistically of news like that, we should be getting a much larger pump than, 5-6%, right? Back here in 2019, when we're in the similar stage of the cycle, right? I'm pretty sure we're around here somewhere, or maybe it was in this leg here. Donald Trump came out and said that he didn't like Bitcoin, and just, having the president mention Bitcoin pumped us like 40% pretty much straight away. Like we had a really big run. It might have been somewhere through here, this leg or something. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it was in this run up that we had a similar part of the cycle actually to where we are now. Another example would have been when China came out and said that they were going to start doing blockchain stuff, and we gigapumped 40% pretty much straight up over 2 days. Also, I think it started on it was a Friday, Saturday. Yeah, makes sense. It was over the weekend. Right. So to only get a 5% pump here off basically, the judge ruling that the SEC can't really have spot futures futures ETF approved without having a spot ETF approved, while you have all these mega companies breathing down the SEC's neck like BlackRock, Fidelity, ARK, all, pushing very aggressively for spot ETF. And those approvals are on the doorstep at the moment. Sorry, the first deadlines, I should say, are on the doorstep at the moment. To really only get a 5% pump here, I'm not super impressed. Now, the main thing that I'm looking for, because I'm still actually quite bullish here, guys. I don't want you to think I'm bearish or something like that, because we were talking about the liquidity and where we are in the cycle right now. I just don't think that Bitcoin is in the position the way it is right now to be running, to 50K, anytime soon. Maybe we can get up to 50K if we do get a breakout of, this 31, 32K area towards the back end of this year. Like that's definitely possible. and we can sort of get that run up. But I think I don't really see us, moving to a new all-time high, right? We could maybe get a run up to here by by the end of the year in Q4 or something like that. But I don't really see us breaking to a new all-time high or anything like that anytime, realistically before the halving. Like it wouldn't make sense. I think, new all-time high, unless something happens with the BlackRock ETF and that gets approved and we just gig a moon to a new all-time high. I still just don't really see it with, the liquidity issues that, the world economy is facing at the moment, and just understanding how the Bitcoin timing cycle works with the miners. I just don't see us moving to a new all-time high until maybe mid 2024 or end of 2024, right? That would make the most sense if we continue to, follow the path and rhythm that Bitcoin is traded in over the last, 13, 14 years of its existence, right? And so when I was talking about in that video yesterday, we were really looking on much larger, high time frame moves. Like, we weren't looking at this low time frame move here. So I just thought it was a bit funny that someone was, picking on me and giving me shit about a move, 6% move on really bullish news, because realistically, like that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about this low time frame stuff. Like, yeah, that's a great pump if you're an intraday trader, like $1,600, and the price has been moving, 2%, right, over a couple of days or even less. It's, some of these days had next to no volatility. We're literally sitting at the lowest volatility that Bitcoin's been in ever at the moment, right? And that's been the the way for pretty much most of this entire period of the last 70 days, right? And this wasn't really a high volatility period through here as well, like a big chunk of that. So pretty much since May, we've had one nice move, then another nice move down. And both those moves were much larger than the pump that we had last night. And so far, we've had no follow through. Hopefully, we can get some follow through. Now, the big thing that I'm watching for now is this level to be taken out, which is pretty much 29K, right? On the lower time frames, there's definitely a bit of a level down here at 28,600, right? If that can be reclaimed, then things are starting to look better. So I would like to see, like, for a bullish case anyway, I'd like to see a bull flag here, and then pump up like this, and then come back, retest, and then run again from there, right? That would make the most sense to me, to be, confirming to be bullish, right? A reclaim of this level through here, right? We've got our weekly order block, I think, from back here. That might be a daily one, right? And the 2021 yearly open, which is a pretty nice level as well, right? So a reclaim of this 29K, 28,600 level is going to be bullish, right? This can easily do something like this and just bleed back out. Now, pretty much every single pump that we've had recently from every pump that we've had recently, from a news event has ended up just retracing the entire thing. Like look at XRP, for example, right? XRP, they won their case, and this pumped like 100%, right? And then just retrace the entire pump, right? Things are not running off news events right now. So I think it's important to understand that, and, not get too excited by this pump off the news event. We really need to see the market running properly based on the underlying fundamentals of how the system works, which is based on the miners, because they're the biggest sellers in the market. And based on them removing supply out of the market and demand growing over time as prices move higher, and demand coming from the ETF getting approved, and demand coming from inflation from the central banks injecting liquidity back into the markets, right? Those are the major things that's going to really send Bitcoin, right? And then, one day we'll be laughing about a 6% move, being a pump, because a pump for me on Bitcoin is like a 50%, 100% move. Like, it's definitely not something under 10%. Like, come on, that's a pump for ants. I definitely wouldn't consider that a pump, right? Now, I could definitely see this being the beginning of a new 60-day cycle, right? So back here was day 53, right? That was definitely our low here. Let's get our let's get our little tags up, right? So this was day 53, and this ended up being day 63. So typically Bitcoin moves in around 60 days from one low to the next low, and this was 3 days off. So a perfect 60-day cycle pretty much through there. Now, what we need to see here is this going to be the start of a new left translated cycle, which would mean if, we chop sideways here for a little bit, we come up, get rejected from here, and this ends up being the top of this cycle, right, before 30 days, right? So, right, comes up, that's going to be like 27, right? So it might even be a little bit closer to here, right, around the low 20s, and then rolls over, right, and makes a new low. This would be giving us an indication that we're moving back into a downtrend, right? And it will also be, this is our ultimate high for the year, lower high, right, lower high with a lower low here and a lower low, right? So technically, these are more like inside lower lows and lower highs, and these are, the major swing points on the outside. So we would need to see, for me to say that this is, yes, in a downtrend now, I would need to see this come up, right, make a local high here and then roll over. And then if we make a new low below this level through here, then yes, that would be confirmed back into a downtrend. And that for sure opens up the potential to hunt this level down here at 20,000, right? Now, without this rejection here moving into a new low, right, lower low and into a downtrend, right, we definitely cannot say that, the market is bearish because we're still making an uptrend at the moment. We just made a new high. So, right, higher high, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, right? So we're still in an uptrend, right? Now, if this can reclaim here and still behave bullishly and then break out of this, right? And then we can finally get out of our long-term VWAP levels, right? Which I'll get up and show you here, right? Our long-term VWAP levels. You should watch my long-term VWAP video or the one that Romps did on our YouTube channel. You understand how these levels work, but this is the key level that's holding us down here at the moment. It's the previous year value area high, and it's taken from this VWAP, right? And it's this level here. So it's the value area, which is this sort of cone shaped thing through here. And that's a standard deviation away from this blue line, right? So this value area, the previous year's value area high, that's a really key important level. And once we finally break out of that, then the target is going to be 35K. And then up here, 45K is going to be the next major target if we can reclaim. So we might end up doing something like this, reclaiming the low through here, then breaking out of the previous year value area high, pushing up and reclaiming, getting on the inside of this 35K level from the 2021 year, right? And then, finally do whatever it is we need to do to make our pathway up to this 45K target would be the next one, because that is the point of control from the VWAP from the 2021 year. Okay, so that is like the higher time frame map on how we sort of move up. But those are the key levels. Now, it's not going to just go up, linearly like this, pump, bull flag, pump, bull flag, pump, bull flag. It's going to chop around all over the place. Like, look, when we came into the value area here and moved around, like, it was a bit more messy. It was a bit more choppy from that, right? This took forever to play out. We might end up doing something like that as well. So just the guidelines, it's more just looking at the levels but we will be looking for bullish shape and bullish structures to get put in place and then looking for those targets, right? So hopefully that makes sense, right? We're not talking about a 6% move being a pump. That is for sure. When I talk about pumping, I'm talking about pumping to 150K, 250K. I'm talking about big moves, 100, 200, 300% moves. The way that Bitcoin moves when it is in a bull market. Because a lot of people are talking about Bitcoin right now and saying, oh, it's dead because, it's not pumping. And, the facts are that there's a lot of liquidity still being pulled out of the market. Like, look at this downtrend on the ECB, right? When that finally breaks back into an uptrend, right? Or at least stop making new lows. Like, look at this here, right? This is a massive gap down, right? In their liquidity in the market, right? Similar to back here, right? That was a really huge gap down as well. The US has actually injected a little bit of capital recently. And we can see global is trying to put in some sort of a bottoming structure, tiny little move back up. And it's almost as pathetic as Bitcoin's little move through there as well. ECB have recently injected a tiny little bit, and we can see that China has actually been pumping it pretty hard. Almost the same as the start of the year, but a little bit lower. They really need the US to start injecting capital into markets again before they can go properly hard at stimulus again. They are in a lot of trouble at the moment with Evergrande going under and their property market really imploding. They're also having a lot of issues with manufacturing and exports as well at the moment. So that is one of the major canaries in the coal mine for the global economy. But I do believe that the world is moving away from China being its only relying on that as the growth center to push the global economy forward. And it's going to come back more localized to the US. But anyway, we don't need to get too deep into that sort of stuff. The main thing that we're watching for here is this level here to be reclaimed, right? And this level here to be reclaimed, right? I want to see this ECB chart start to, at least flatten out, go sideways, or get a little bit of liquidity, maybe start to range sideways here, right? Now, to circle back all the way to the start of the video when I was talking about Donald Trump talking about Bitcoin and we pumped really aggressively, let's go back and have a look at the market and what liquidity was doing back here. Now, I'm pretty sure it was in this leg here, possibly was in this leg here, but regardless, it was one of the two. That was when Donald Trump basically said, I think it was on his Facebook or his Twitter, that he doesn't like Bitcoin because he prefers US dollar, and absolutely sent the market, right? So back here, we've been in a really solid downtrend, right, on US, which is the green line is US liquidity, right? And we can see here that the market actually bottomed a little bit before. Now, why did that happen? We got a turnaround before we had a bottoming out in QT and QE, right? So the Federal Reserve withdrawing capital from the economy and the market and putting it back in, right? Basically, what happened was back here, you can see that the day that we actually stopped and put in the high for US dollar liquidity in the economy was the day that Bitcoin ended up topping it. And that was the day when they flipped from being on from being on QE. So we'd been in a state of stimulus for a long, long time where they were injecting money into the capital markets, right? Look, all the way through 2017, there was a lot of injections, right? And then they said, we're not going to stimulate the economy anymore. We're actually going to start to withdraw capital from the economy, and we're going to start to put interest rates up. And that basically was the point at when the bull market ended in 2017, and we went into a bear market, right? From that point onwards, right back here, when just before we broke out of our accumulation phase in 2019, that was actually on the back of the Federal Reserve coming out and Jerome Powell saying we're going to start moving back to QE again and lowering interest rates, right? But when they come out and say that, right, back here, they still had a little bit of work to do, and it was later on in the year, right? They usually give a timeline of when they're going to reverse QT to QE. And actually, they ended up bottoming sometime around here in the middle sorry, that was in September. So towards the back end of the year. And then, we start to move up from there. And you see the liquidity start to come back into Bitcoin over this period here. And that's when we put in another accumulation phase of the inverse head and shoulders. And Bitcoin actually started to really nice rally out of here. Right. And that was actually really nice, very easy uptrend to trade. But then what happened? We had COVID and it ended up rolling over because that was a global liquidity crisis. But then we had a huge injection of capital. And, what happened? Months later, Bitcoin ended up pumping. Now, if we go and look at global liquidity, follows the US liquidity very similarly, right? And same with the ECB, right? So when the market is excited about new capital coming into it, it is much easier to pump the price of Bitcoin, right? At the moment, we're still in this QT phase. We're still in this area of the market back here, right? We're actually sort of starting to go a little bit sideways, at least on the USD front, right? Let grab these guys back into the chart. I might have to do this 1 second while we reset the chart. So it's important to understand that we're actually sort of moving into more of a sideways liquidity market at the moment. You can see the ECB is still just draining it so hard, and global liquidity is still making low lows. So we need to sort of stabilize, right, and get some sort of action like this sideways for a little bit, and then maybe later on in the year, or probably more likely sometime next year, the Federal Reserve will come out and say that we're going to move back into QE from QT, and that will give us, but they'll give us a timeline on that, right? It won't be like we're moving tomorrow. It's usually like 6 months plus in advance, right? So when they announced it back in 2019, they didn't actually bottom out the liquidity until pretty sure. So the bottom was actually put in here in May, right? And they started putting a little bit more in, but we really didn't go into a solid uptrend until September. Was when we sort of broke out. So this looks like a little accumulation zone, right? And then we broke out of that. Then obviously COVID sent it, right? But generally what would have happened is this would have just chopped like this and gone back up to these highs, right? If it wasn't for COVID and the news needing massive amounts of stimulus, right? So hopefully that makes sense. So it won't be an instant reaction, I don't think, unless we have something else going on that is causing, a lot of people to speculate on the price of Bitcoin going up. But that could be the halving, and it also could be the BlackRock ETF as well being approved, right? So the combination of all those things, and then the insight on the excitement of new QE coming into the market, new liquidity being injected into the market, could be the trigger that starts to send us getting really aggressive again into a nice smooth uptrend, right? We have been in a decent little uptrend throughout the year. But it has taken a long time for each of these phases of this uptrend to play out, right? So yeah, we could end up seeing a little bit easier to trade price action, moves a little bit more like this and like this coming. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. If you got something out of this video, please give us a like and subscribe. Share this video with your friends who are into crypto, and we'll chat to you all next week. I just didn't record.